What we're talking about is no less than the end of civilization.
The end, and it could happen in a flash with a nuclear bomb, warns former U.S. Defense Secretary William Perry. North Korea's recent missile tests and aggressive flexing of its growing nuclear power sounds an alarm. Combined with today's political climate, Perry says, means a ratcheting up of the world's nuclear threat level.
The possibility of some kind of a nuclear catastrophe is probably greater than it has ever been, greater than any time during the Cold War.
Perry served under President Bill Clinton, but traces his nuclear knowledge back to the Cuban Missile Crisis as a CIA analyst during the Kennedy administration, when America edged frighteningly close to a nuclear war with Russia. That was the height of the Cold War, when school children rehearsed for a nuclear attack. Today, an aggressive Russia is once again touting its nuclear capability, while North Korea tests the new president, a brash, first-time politician, the administration promising a strengthening of its nuclear arsenal.
The United States will not yield its supremacy in this area to anybody. Our goal is to make sure that we maintain America's dominance around the world.
What is the North Korea piece of this?
The danger is not that North Korea would deliberately and consciously plan an attack with their weapons, but they would blunder into some kind of a conflict.
Is it real? How real is this?
Well, first of all, the nuclear weapons are very real, and there are almost 15,000 in the world today, more than enough to destroy the entire planet.
If the president gave the order, we had to launch the missiles.
It's a concern being echoed by Bruce Blair, former nuclear missile launch officer who recorded this anti-Trump ad for the Clinton campaign. Blair says he's speaking not as a partisan, but as a scholar. His concern, not just Kim Jong-un, but President Trump.
This person is erratic, impulsive, aggressive, ill-informed. He is the sole authority who can decide whether or not to launch thousands of nuclear weapons in minutes with a single phone call. I just don't have confidence in his judgment. I live in fear that he would make a bad call and that call could be civilization ending.
Trump supporters like former Navy SEAL Carl Higbie say despite his fiery rhetoric, the president understands the power of the office.
According to Reuters, Turkey told the Netherlands on Sunday that it would retaliate in the harshest ways after Turkish ministers were barred from speaking in Rotterdam as a row over Ankara's political campaigning among Turkish immigrants escalated. President Tayyip Erdogan said Nazism is still widespread in the West after the Netherlands joined other European countries worried about political tensions inside Turkey spilling beyond its borders that had prevented Turkish politicians from holding rallies. The Dutch government on Saturday first barred Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu from flying to Rotterdam and later stopped Family Minister Fatma Betül Sayan Kaya from entering the Turkish consulate in the port city before escorting her out of the country to Germany.
The impeachment of South Korea's former President Park is dividing this country, and as you can see from the faces in this crowd, that division is largely along generational lines. Many of these people are older veterans who remember the nearly 2 decades that her father led this country. They remember the family's legacy of political service, and they say this impeachment does not do that legacy justice, which is why out here at this gathering in support of the disgraced president, it almost has the feeling of a political funeral.
She did her best, her life has been sacrificed to build this country free from communists.
The symbolism out here is remarkable. This is the rally in support of former President Park, and just a couple of blocks down the street, this barrier dividing the anti-Park demonstration. It is a physical symbol of the deep divisions in this country. You walk through that barricade past a no man's land of thousands of police officers on standby to prevent the kind of violence we saw on Friday, and then it's like you're in a completely different environment. There's music, people are dancing, celebrating, and you also see a lot of younger faces in this crowd and people who are chanting, "Lock her up," referring to the former President Park. This side of the barricade feels almost like a political carnival. The faces are younger, the crowd's much larger. These are indicative of the people who came out for months demanding the impeachment of President Park, demanding an investigation and prosecution for corruption charges. And these are the people who are now taking essentially a victory lap. They are ready to see South Korea move in a new direction. They're tired of the powerful and the elite getting a competitive advantage. They are ready for change, and they feel that they have won.
Let me say, and watch my words very carefully, celibacy does not cause pedophilia. There, I've said it. But it has nevertheless been a cloak for pedophiles in the past. Do you think that's also part of the thinking and reason why we're having this conversation?
I don't know, but I know from the John Jay study of the priests in this country that less than 5% of the abusers, and there was almost very few abusers, by the way, less than 5% were pedophiles. Almost all of them are homosexuals. So I guess I'll be the last guy in the country who has the guts to say it, and I'm not saying homosexuality causes predatory behavior. I am saying that 81% of the victimizers of the victims are male. 78% of them are post-pubescent. They were adolescents, and 100% of them were the victimizers were male. There's a word for that in the English language. It's called homosexuality. Let's not dodge this.
After being denied at first, Outvets, a gay veterans group, has now accepted an invitation to march in Boston's St. Patrick's Day Parade. Outvets marched in the past 2 years, but this year the organizers said Outvets' logo didn't comply with the parade's code of conduct. And since the parade is privately run by the Allied War Veterans Council of South Boston, it actually has legal precedent to exclude groups under freedom of speech. The Washington Post also notes LGBTQ groups have largely been kept from marching in the parade for decades. In response, Boston's mayor and Massachusetts governor said they wouldn't walk in this year's parade, and corporate sponsors like Anheuser-Busch also withdrew. On Friday, the organizers changed course, and Outvets accepted their invitation. But some argue Outvets being denied in the first place has already damaged South Boston's image.
The organizers of the annual Los Angeles Gay Pride have announced that this year's march will be replaced by a protest against President Donald Trump. Local West Hollywood news outlet WeHoville.com revealed late last night in a statement that read, "The annual Pride Parade has been canceled, setting to the nationwide LGBT Resist March that is scheduled in many U.S. states for Sunday, June 11th, the day the Los Angeles Pride Parade would normally occur." It quotes organizer Brian Pendleton via Queerity, "We want to resist apathy." In a press statement, Christopher Street West, the organization that stages LA Pride Parade and Festival, said, "Given the current political climate where divisiveness and discrimination continue to be part of the mainstream dialogue, CSW is determined to make the LA Pride brand a unifying force for the LGBTQ+ community and its allies across all of Los Angeles."
Saying there was potential for a major winter storm Monday night into Wednesday with 12 to 18 inches of snow expected, weather forecasters on Sunday put the greater New York City area under blizzard watch. The National Weather Service said the storm raised the potential for dangerous travel and power outages, with damaging wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour possible across eastern Long Island and southeastern Connecticut. In the western United States, meanwhile, the service forecast potentially record-setting heat in Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. There, temperatures were expected into the 90s Fahrenheit in some places.
Jason Pollock, where did this come from? Where did this video come from? How did you obtain it?
I obtained this video by deciding to move to Ferguson, work with the family, and do real investigative journalism for the last 2 years. And that's how the truth comes out. When you do real work and you focus on one story and you dig into it. We originally found the paperwork in the St. Louis County Police report, which shows that they saw a video at 1:13 a.m. of Michael Brown walking into the convenience store. And that tipped us off that this happened. They admit that it happened in their own report, and the document which we found proves it. So them saying that they don't know what they're talking about is ridiculous, because they either don't read the report or they're not telling us the truth. Based on everything that's happened, it seems like they're probably not telling us the truth. So we found the document, and then we were able to acquire the video. And the video is at the same exact time as their own document. So to prove that the video is real, they proved it for us. Their document says that Michael Brown walked into the store on August 9th at 1:13 a.m. The video that we've acquired, at the top of the video, you can see the time code, and it clearly says the exact same time and date. So the video is pretty much corroborated by the St. Louis County police report. Thank you, St. Louis County. I'm not exactly sure why they don't understand what's happening with it, but I think that they're pretty much just pointing fingers at each other right now because they've been outed. And what this video shows is that they lied to the world about what happened. They wanted to make Mike look bad, so they put out half a video to destroy his character in his death.
The Islam Mosque in Rotterdam is the largest mosque in the Netherlands. Last year, the imam received a letter insulting Islam, showing Nazi symbols. Other mosques have received similar letters. One was attacked with a petrol bomb. The imam says these are not isolated incidents.
The number of incidents against Muslims has increased enormously. Recently, there has been a report that came out about Islamophobia in the Netherlands. Now it has really become an issue. Dozens, even hundreds of reports are made each year about these kinds of issues. And those are the incidents we know about. But what about the ones that are not reported? People are too afraid to come forward. That has really become an issue.
Since 2015, incidents of hate crimes against Muslims have almost doubled. Many of the Netherlands' 1 million Muslims are deeply concerned about the rise in discrimination and about the anti-Islam rhetoric of Firebrand MP Geert Wilders, who is a frontrunner in the polls ahead of Wednesday's vote.
Wilders says he wants to de-Islamize the Netherlands and says if he's elected, he will ban the sale of all Qurans, close all mosques and Islamic schools, and shut the borders to immigrants from Muslim countries.
With the election just days away, hundreds of anxious citizens packed into the mosque for a debate on the role of Muslims in the Netherlands. Rotterdam Mayor Ahmed Abu Taleb, a Muslim and an immigrant himself, encouraged people to engage in the political process. He told the crowd, "There are too many people who shut themselves away and think this will pass, but it won't if you're a spectator and take a back seat." Although Wilders did not attend the debate, his presence loomed large as the country, one of the most liberal in Europe, braces for a decisive shift to the right. Kate Parkinson, CGTN, Rotterdam, in the Netherlands.
Germany's interior minister said police had stopped a possible attack at a shopping center in the western city of Essen Saturday, and there were indications of a link to Islamic State militants. Germany is on high alert following deadly militant attacks in France and Belgium, and after a failed asylum seeker from Tunisia drove a truck into a Berlin Christmas market in December, killing 12 people. Police closed one of Germany's biggest shopping malls Saturday after security agencies warned of a possible attack and questioned 2 men in connection with the threat. Security sources told Reuters that the threat appeared to follow a call for violence by a German militant loyal to Islamic State, who is currently based in a region of Syria controlled by the militant group. According to officials, the danger of a terrorist attack in Germany remained high. Officials are worried that Islamist radicals will return from Syria or Iraq to stage attacks on German soil.
What it appears happened here is that a man gained entrance to the White House security perimeter at around 11:38 Friday night and actually made quite a bit of progress into the White House perimeter before finally being captured there by the South Portico entrance, which is on the backside of the White House. This is a pretty familiar entrance to the White House. This is, of course, the entrance that the president would enter and exit from when he's leaving on a trip to get onto Marine One before heading to Joint Base Andrews. It's also a place where the president will regularly greet foreign visitors and people that are coming to the White House. They'll bring their motorcade up on that driveway that enters right through the South Portico. You mentioned the security at that time. It was raised to the orange level, which is one of the highest security levels before the situation was brought under control and this man was put under arrest. We're told that the president was in the residence at the time. The suspect could have been only a few hundred yards away from the president at that time, but the president was never in any danger. He was made aware of the situation as soon as the Secret Service could provide him those details. And as we said, the president was not harmed. So this individual is under arrest right now. We're still awaiting an official statement from the Secret Service regarding this incident so that we can learn more information. But as of now, security at the White House is back to its normal level after being at that orange level overnight.
アメリカ軍の原子力空母カール・ビンソンを中心とする部隊と東シナ海で共同訓練を行ったことを明らかにしました。
The joint drill commenced on March 7th, but the exercise was not made public until March 10th. The U.S. aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson joined Japanese destroyers to train and enhance proficiency in tactics and improved response capabilities. The exercise kicked off a day after the DPRK launched 4 ballistic missiles towards Japan. According to Japanese media, the drills are meant to deter further missile tests and highlight the strengths of the military alliance.
I mean, at the military level, I think much of the things that we do are just underscored as to the importance that we continue that cooperation amongst our allies in this region.
It is rather rare for the two Navy forces to choose East China Sea as the location of their military drills. The regular rendezvous usually takes place in a West Pacific region, in waters near Guam or close to Okinawa. Notably, another drill was completed near Guam around the same time. The two sides also practiced drill on land. 6 Osprey MV-22 took part in drills inside Japan for the first time since a severe crash last November. The drills comes as U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson prepares to visit South Korea, Japan, and China next week, his first trip to Asia since President Donald Trump took office.
This weekend, Meet a Muslim Day, a day that aims to fight the fear of Islam, has been celebrated in 85 cities across the country. About 1% of the U.S. population is Muslim, and many Americans have never met a person of the Muslim faith. The goal of Meet a Muslim Day is to build acceptance and understanding of Islam as a religion.
The conflicts in northern Myanmar have resulted in casualties in China. The Chinese government is closely monitoring the situation in the border region. China urges a ceasefire between conflicting parties in the border region so that order can be restored at an early date. China also urges the Myanmar government to protect the safety and legitimate rights of the Chinese citizens and institutions in Myanmar. Chinese authorities have also warned citizens to avoid entering conflict-affected regions and to evacuate those areas as soon as possible.
The Northeast is bracing for a blizzard that might be the season's biggest snowstorm. The storm is expected to bring 18 inches of snow to the New York area. The National Weather Service has issued a blizzard watch for regions including New York City and the areas of Long Island, Westchester County, and Connecticut. The heavy snow is expected to fall on Sunday, combined with wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour.
Vandals scrawled graffiti claiming the Holocaust was fake history on an exterior wall of a Seattle synagogue, leading the rabbi to urge President Donald Trump to more forcefully denounce a wave of anti-Semitic incidents in recent months. Seattle police said they were investigating the vandalism at Temple de Hirsch Sinai as a hate crime after an off-duty officer spotted it Friday. Holocaust is fake history, read this spray-painted message, with each S letter written as dollar signs. The rabbi linked their graffiti and a series of bomb threats against Jewish community centers since January to what he characterized as permissiveness of white supremacy from parts of the electorate during the 2016 presidential election campaign. He did not blame Trump or his administration directly, but regretted the tone that's been set throughout the campaign when white nationalists embraced the Trump campaign.
A deadly haze is the cost consequence the UK capital suffers in its role as Britain's paramount political and financial centre. It's here, down at ground level, that people pay the price. A King's College study found more than 9,000 people in London die prematurely every year due to air pollution. According to Client Earth, an environmental lobby group, London's air often breaches international law.
Air pollution is impacting on our lives throughout our lifetime. So from when we're in the womb, it can cause premature births. As we're growing up, children are growing up with smaller lung capacity, which is going to affect their health into adulthood. And then as we're adults and older people, there's an increased risk of developing things like cancer and also the problems with respiratory and heart conditions.
According to figures from City Hall, toxic air at more than 400 schools across the capital exceeds legal limits. And the cause of what's described as London's air pollution crisis, in large part, drivers and their vehicles on the capital's congested roads. The boss of a local firm making protective masks says London traffic is never ending.
Well, of course, London's a medieval city with a 21st century traffic challenge, and they've done a lot of work in terms of having cycle schemes and congestion charges here. But as you can see today, even in the middle of the day, it's still very congested right here in the city centre.
London Mayor Sadiq Khan is to impose a $15 penalty on polluting vehicles, what they're calling a toxicity charge. It'll raise an estimated $3 million a month, but even Sadiq Khan admits it won't be enough. He's calling for new clean air laws.
In one respect, London is a victim of its own commercial and economic success. The challenge facing the government is for how long it'll put the economy before the health and lives of Londoners. Richard Bestick, CGTN, London.
This was an interview that Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president, gave to the Chinese media. And of course, we're focusing on his remarks that any foreign force that enters Syria without government permission should be considered invaders. He said whether they're Americans or Turks. But the fact of the matter is there's very little he can do about it, given the limited control the Syrian government has over its territory, what with we're now entering the 7th year of civil war here. But also during that interview, he said that he and President Trump share common views on counterterrorism and fake news. And he said that he didn't rule out the possibility that at some point the United States and Syria could cooperate in the fight against terrorism. Now, when he talked about the U.S. as invaders in Syria, he's referring to several hundred U.S. troops that are in the northern part of the country supporting American-backed rebels, Kurds and Arabs who are fighting against ISIS. And of course, that is something that the Syrian government is also doing, as well as Turkish-backed forces. So it's a bit of a mess on the ground in northern Syria with all these forces involved. We do know that Russian-American military officers met in Syria recently for what was called a deconfliction meeting. In other words, to make sure that Russian forces, American forces, Turkish forces, all operating in northern Syria, don't get into a shooting war.
The U.S. aircraft carrier Carl Vinson is set to join Japan's maritime self-defense forces for a military drill in the Pacific Ocean. The exercise is considered to be a form of deterrence against the DPRK over its recent nuclear test and missile launch. The drill also further shows the strong alliance between Washington and Tokyo, with the exercise covering tactical interaction maneuvers and communications collaboration.